Hi, Leilani Coffin here, CEO of Learning Council on News Media and Research. So, what happened in Baltimore? So, I was there, of course, for the Learning Logistics and Tech Tour event. It's a meeting and had a really good time. Some of the best educators came through probably one of the worst rainstorms ever from the initial tales of Hurricane Helene that were landing there in Baltimore that morning. Not everyone that registered made it, sadly, but we still had a really great meeting. So my takeaways were that Superintendent Joseph Jones of Newcastle County Vocational Technical School District is awesome, as is his friend and former educator at, let me see if I can say this right, Apaquanimic Mink. I can't even say the name of that district, but they're in Delaware. He's a former educator there, and they co-wrote some books. That was Mr. TJ Vari with Superintendent Joseph Jones, and they spoke in the morning after we held several rounds of table discussions on the issues in schools for personalization, the alpha generation and their traits, and what's different about teaching them. And then also the 9 types of AI and the 9 types of human intelligence. So those were really fun discussions. And it felt like the conversation there in Baltimore bent towards, sort of a part of one of our plan discussions, and that was school security. So Mr. Jim Corns, who's the executive director of IT from Baltimore County Public Schools, had a lot to contribute to that because, of course, he's in IT. He gave us sort of a history of how it has sort of grown as a concern with his particular district and what it has meant for him in IT. And then we also had Dr. Ann Labor Adners from Washington County Public Schools, who, as a supervisor, is deeply into what goes on with digital curriculum resources in schools, and so had other things to say on some of those discussions. And then Dr. Keisha Addison, the Director Office of Shared Accountability from Montgomery County Public Schools, gave the discussions several very reasoned and interesting points. We were lucky to also have others there, including a teacher, Suzanne Canole. I hope I said her name right, Suzanne Canole. It's got an E at the end. Whose view we all appreciated, of course, because having a teacher in the room, even though a lot of people were former teachers, gives us a sort of current, what's going on the ground level of schooling right now. We also heard from Assistant Principal Dr. Joseph Bostick Jr. from Northwood High School at Montgomery County Public Schools, who grounded us with having us consider the present state of schooling and the experience of being a student. So I haven't had anyone do that to me lately, and I was glad to gain that perspective once again of being young, of moving along into this required schooling reality despite obstacles in my own youthful inexperience. I don't think we adults remember how that felt very often. Okay, so let me not forget mentioning 2 books that Superintendent Jones brought with him and actually gave me copies. You just have to go get. One is Building a Winning Team, where you can read about the growing need for talent in schools, but really it's a leadership primer that is not 3,000 pages long, like so many of them are. It's only 123 pages, and it's organized extraordinarily well. I think you should get it. And another book he brought with him that he also wrote with TJ Vari and Salome Thomas L. is called Retention for a Change. And it's a follow-on book to the first one. It's even shorter, and it has keys in there on like how to have teacher retention accelerators. And doesn't every school leader need those right now more than almost anything else? Seriously, the teacher losses everywhere are pretty staggering. But you need to have met Superintendent Jones in person to get his vibe. He's a leader, and without having to be told. So the final panel actually was super fun with great comments, but don't let me give it away because the videos will be all soon and the Learning Council site soon. So my last takeaway to this meeting, though small because of the hurricane, that also forced me to stay in Baltimore one more night because there was just no way I was flying through Atlanta in the middle of a hurricane. And I feel really bad for the folks in North Carolina and parts of Florida and parts of other states and Georgia. It was a really, really bad hurricane. We should all say a prayer for them. But I want to say that the Baltimore area left me thinking that at least those folks really are at the top of the IQ spectrum. There's some smart people up there, and those are just the ones that came. So I also want to mention the few reps like Edmentum, Greg Adams from Edmentum, who's a great contributor, Dan Haas from Lightspeed, Molly Armin Holston and Owen Mullen from Promethean, They were all former educators who contributed to the vision of what education needs to arrive at, to retain teachers, to retain and attract students, provide wholesome and riveting experiences for the present alpha generation. Really great meeting. So off to Philadelphia next.